So some of the unique items in Dune Awakening have some very strong secret powers, like for example the ability to almost never attract Shai Hulud, or a cutteray that is almost as good and in some situations even better than the top end Mark 6 version you get in the Deep Desert, plus many more including some armor sets. We're gonna check all of that in this video and let's dive right in. But if you're constantly still running into trouble with Shai Hulud, constantly increasing that threat meter, get yourself a pair of Softstep boots. There are quite a few of them in Haga Basin as it is, like one of the first you can find right here at testing station 197. There's another one that can randomly drop from the end boss chest right here at Misa Tarl, but basically every single one of them will give you one of these bonuses right here, a minus 45% to worm threat. The only other thing that changes is maybe the armor value, but literally you can go with the level 1 and that's going to still be very good. So I went ahead and done a bunch of testing, and let me tell you, literally Sunstroke takes way quicker to even hit you before the worm does any real detection. I've been running over these sand dunes right here and I had to actually stop and hide behind some shade before the worm even got attracted. The only thing that attracted it was upon using one of my abilities to run really quickly, but normal speed did not seem to attract it, at least not for a very long time, as opposed to, for example, even walking barefoot, which took less than half of that time to already alert it and make the squiggles appear already on the screen. So if you're in the deep desert, for example, and collecting a lot of that spice dust, or if you're getting flower sand, get yourself a pair of these, nothing else on your character, and you're going to be golden. But moving on to number 2, we have the Tarl cutteray, which is literally the best version in Haga Basin, and in certain types of minerals even exceeds the Mark 6 version that you normally only get from the items in the deep desert. So for example, if we pay attention over here compared to the Mark 5, it literally just blows it out of the water. Every single resource yield is way higher over here. But pay attention in comparison to Mark 6, for example, Jasmium is 152 on the yield for the Tarl cutteray, meanwhile only 142 on the Mark 6. It's the same on Titanium and Stravidium on both MK6 and Tarl cutteray, so you're pretty much getting this, but way cheaper, and it's going to be much better. So go ahead and go right here on this side of the map. You're going to find it possibly as a drop at testing station 71. So in this case, the only thing you have to do is progress in it, and in one of the rooms over here, right across the middle section, you should find the blue ID band. You can go ahead, grab it, and go right away back to the junction, and from this point on, go through the blue shield, and in one of the back rooms over here, you're going to find another ID band, purple quality now, on one of the benches. And once you get it, go back to the main purple shield area, and you can now go to the final location, and you're going to have a chance to retrieve it from the chest over there. However, that's not the only set we can get. There are many more, and the next ones, including some of the best weapons, we can find right here in Sheol in a few specific locations. So let's start with my favorite, which is the Acheronian armor set. This is a heavy variant and a better version basically of the mercenary heavy armor set. It even has a slightly different color tint when you equip this. But besides that, if we take a look at the comparison table over here, we can see that the armor values are significantly higher. 425 just for the chest plate, plus of course we can see that light dart mitigation and blade mitigation over here, at least in terms of the debuff on one of them, is much better. So to get these, you pretty much have to go right here almost around the middle part of Sheol in a place called Shaitan's Grotto or Satan's Grotto, and in this case you're going to definitely need a hazmat suit. Once you are at the location, pay attention to its entrance and make your way in. In this case, you're going to keep it to the left side. Eventually, you should see that the end of the tunnel brings you to one of these altar areas, very similar to the ones we had from the story. And paying attention here to your right, you should see some rubble, and beneath it, there's a chest that does have a chance to actually give you every single piece of this armor, piece by piece essentially. So you're going to have to make at least 5 or so trips over here if you're super lucky, possibly closer to 7 or even 10, so that you can get all of the actual pieces. But it's not the only armor. If you instead prefer a light armor version instead, the best in Haga Basin is going to be the Syndicate armor set. And you're going to find it from Edge of Acheron right here a bit up north, also in Sheol. But luckily this is going to be behind the actual radiation, so you don't actually need the hazmat suit for it. In this case, what I recommend doing is just going ahead and jumping straight here to the side, and you should already see the shield hiding the chest. But in this case, we're going to go up the stairs and up again, and we're gonna find the ID band right here on the main table. You may find enemies in the area, but you can just go ahead and skip them. Once you got it, just go down below, back again, over to the main shield, and now you can enter inside and grab that Syndicate armor piece or anything else that you might have gotten. Again, minimum 5 trips so that you can get the full armor, but it's totally worth it. I mean, the bonuses on it are definitely way better than the light variant we can craft on our own. This is, by the way, how it looks like. Like I said, very close to the tier 5 versions we can craft. It's just that the color scheme changes a little bit to that purple and dark theme. However, you may be lucky and get something else dropping at the edge of Acheron, just like in the case of the previous chests as well. So another very cool schematic that can drop over here that's very useful for farming is the bigger buggy boot MK5, which actually gets closer in terms of value to the Mark 6, and it's actually going to have a much larger item slot of 30 instead of just 20. So you can see over here it greatly exceeds the number of item slots you can have even on a Mark 6 by default. So again, it can be a random drop over here from Archeon, and in this case I highly recommend you go ahead and install it, especially if you're planning to enhance your farming even more. This means your trips can go for longer, you can come back with a lot more resources, which means funneling them into better and better loot, especially as these will cost quite a bit of duraluminum to even craft in the first place. But let's keep on going, because there's an amazing sniper rifle that's literally going to be better than a Mark 6, and that's going to be a Thufir's Best. This is going to pretty much give you 262 damage per shot. In comparison, even to the tier 6 Spit Dart, that one has 235. So even compared to that, it's significantly better, and compared to, like, for example, the tier 5 Spit Dart, it just blows it out of the water, like 100 plus extra damage, almost double the damage that that one has. The only caveat over here is that the clip size is a 2 instead of 3, but this is going to be amazing. So you can actually find it in quite a number of spots. I've been highly successful with the schematic, getting it right here from what's essentially the rack of the Euporia, also in Sheol, southwest on the side of the map. It can also drop from another wreckage side, like for example this right here, Rack of the Delphis, also has a chance to drop that. Plus you can also get this from the Mentat quest line. If you finish the advanced Mentat quest line, you're going to also get that, as I covered that in a previous video. But if you lose that weapon somehow, you can always grab the schematic back from one of these two locations in Sheol, and this just changes everything. I've even gone and taken down enemies, for example, in the deep desert, especially in the safe zone version of the testing stations, and even in that case, two-shotting enemies is totally possible with this. It's definitely way quicker than the adept version we normally have at that stage. But on a final note, don't put down some of the testing stations you find in the safe zone of the deep desert, because you can also get a tier 5 variant that is also a bit slightly better than tier 5 best versions we have in Haga Basin. Like for example right here, I got the Mandek helmet. And the difference between the Mandek and the Acheronian armor set, both of which are basically the heavy versions of the mercenary, by the way, the difference over here is that some of the stats differ. So for example, armor values will continue to be exactly the same, but sometimes one of them favors, for example, heavy dart mitigation, while the other may favor something like concussive mitigation or maybe light dart mitigation. You're going to see that there's a slight difference between the stats of these two, and that's basically going to give you a rough idea of what it's better against. Though I will say that armor value is probably the most important over here. So if you can get the first one in Haga Basin, that's okay, and you can complete the set with off pieces from the Mandek or the equivalent of the light armor from some of the deep desert safe zone testing stations. Again, they also replenish on a 45-minute timer, and just like in the case of the ones in Haga Basin, they are fully PvE. So even if there's another person in there, none of the chests are contested, both of you can loot them, and none of you can take down each other to steal the loot. So that is actually something that can help quite a bit. On top of the fact that some of the testing stations over here, like 37 for this week, as well as 185, also have a chance to give you the last gun. So that is something that normally you can only get once you are at tier 6, but you can actually craft the tier 5 version with duraluminum in this case, but only if you get its blueprint over in the deep desert safe zone. So totally check it out, do some farming every now and then, and you're going to have all of these amazing items. I still recommend to not get them with you in the deep desert, but definitely keep them for PvE, as that's going to trivialize a good chunk of what you're doing. That is pretty much it with the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.